Hey, church, welcome to What I Wish I'd Said. This is the podcast where we dig deeper into Sunday's message. And this week we talked about radical love and how Jesus challenges us to respond to betrayal with forgiveness. I'm sure this was a message that really hit home for a lot of you. I know it did for me. So let's explore how God can turn the painful experience of betrayal into strength. And to help us dive into that, let's look at a familiar story from the Bible. Well, familiar for some of us, the story about Joseph in Egypt. It's a story about how Joseph was a dreamer and his father's favorite, and that position fueled a lot of jealousy among his brothers, so much so that they betrayed him, actually selling him into slavery in Egypt. Can you imagine how Joseph felt? How his own flesh and blood turned against him, and how easy it would have been for him to harbor resentment? And here's the thing, maybe he did. But instead of allowing that bitterness to take root, Joseph chose to do something different. He chose to trust God and continue to work diligently, even in dire circumstances. And over time, God turned his situation and used it to elevate him to a position of power in Egypt. Joseph's journey shows us that God can take what others mean for harm and actually turn it for good. Now, can you relate? Maybe you haven't been sold into slavery, but have you felt the sting of betrayal? It can leave you feeling broken and alone, but Joseph's story teaches us that those moments can become the very catalyst for our growth and transformation. It's not easy, but God invites us to put our hurt in his hands. And when we do that, he transforms it. Joseph famously told his brothers in Genesis 50:20, after he and they were reunited and they saw him in his position of power, he said this: "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." And this shows us that God's perspective is always greater than our own. His plans for us are bathed in love and purpose, even when we can't see it. Now, we heard this in real time as Linda shared her story with us at the end of the message. She's living proof that God still does today what he did in Joseph's day. And she, by having the courage to be vulnerable and share that story, she prompts us to examine our own lives and ask this question: who in our lives has wronged us? Who has wronged you? And how are you responding? Are you allowing God to use your situation for growth? So as you reflect on Joseph's story and on Linda's testimony, ask yourself this question: what might God do with your betrayal if you gave it to him? Remember, your story's not over yet. And with God, betrayal doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning of a journey towards strength and unexpected blessing. And I pray that this week, as you contemplate the story of Joseph and remember the testimony that Linda shared and study through this passage of the Sermon on the Mount given by Jesus, who also was betrayed, I pray that you'll find the strength to trust God with your hurt and watch him turn it into hope. Have an awesome week.